Hey Jerry, how you doing?
I am good. How are you, Randy?
Good. Welcome everyone. This is Jerry from Fight Commentary Breakdowns.
Mhm.
He's here to visit us today, and we'll have a conversation and see what comes of it.
Awesome. Thanks for the invite, and I'm always glad to be on your show.
Yeah, we had a good talk when I visited you a few weeks ago, or actually it might have been a couple months now.
Yeah,
Time's flying.
time. Exactly.
Um, so your claim to fame, if you will, right now is you started this channel, Fight Commentary Breakdown, and you got a team of people that you do that with.
Mhm.
What got that started?
So it was actually a funny story. 2012, I took my first Kempo lesson. And so credit goes to Donnie Jeffcoat, man. I love the guy. But it got me back into martial arts because I hadn't done martial arts in high school. And I
Yep.
was always so angry and I couldn't understand why. So college, I didn't do martial arts because I went to an Ivy League school. I was supposed to like study, go on whatever
Right.
path that Ivy Leaguers are supposed to go on. But I was never happy either. So
Yeah.
2012, I was in LA and I randomly walked into Donnie Jeffcoat's Shaolin American Self-Defense Academy. And it made me realize, oh yeah, what I was missing those 8 years of my life was martial arts because I quit. I was a kung fu karate kid and I quit martial arts at the end of middle school. So then seeing Kenpo is kind of almost like you could call it adapted kung fu, or adapted karate, maybe more
Yeah.
modernized, etc. And I was like, wow. So I can
Streamline.
almost see the functionality of some of the stuff I was doing when I was in middle school and elementary school and stuff like that. So that's when I realized, you know what? I really want to capture the evolution of martial arts. So it started in 2012. That's when the idea came, but it took 4 years for it to get launched off the ground because I just wasn't familiar with the YouTube ecosystem. I wasn't familiar with how to edit well. I wasn't familiar with how to get a team together, how to do it efficiently. Right. So it took 4 years, but 4 years later, I started Fight Commentary Breakdowns in August of 2016. And at that time, I had a friend who was a collaborator, Trevor Smith, who now teaches at MMA Lab. And so he helped me with the first 6 videos, and then he hated LA, so he went back to Arizona. He loves Arizona. And then with those 6 videos, that's how the channel got started. But then after 2016, I found other people, including Rob Watt, who's the main collaborator now. Rob Watt's an MMA guy, Jiu-Jitsu guy. So once you learn how to make the content, how to source the content, how to make the content find its audience, and how to find efficient collaborators, then it started taking off. So long story short, I was a martial artist who stopped martial arts, who wanted to get back into martial arts, and somehow watching other people fight, watching other people and learning from their mistakes and their lessons was the gateway to get me back into training martial arts myself.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's whatever works, right? Whatever
exactly.
inspires us.
Yeah.
But so just starting that channel, though, you seem to focus on an element of commentary on not so much in professional fights, right? More amateur level stuff like challenge matches and whatnot. What led you in that direction?
So I think what really led me into that direction was just one, convenience, and 2, copyright, because I knew UFC wouldn't let me do commentary on their stuff.
Right.
But TFC, the 5-on-5 Russian league, they took place in Latvia, but the founder of it, Mikhail, is Russian. So I know him. So, and I know Jody, the American representative of Team Fighting Championship. So I knew those guys. So I knew they would let me analyze their footage, and that's how it started. So I was like, okay, I want to analyze stuff and learn lessons. What doesn't have commentary and will let me do commentary? And it was TFC. So that's why I was the first one to give TFC commentary. The first season, the wild season where people's heads were getting thrown into tires and stuff, it had no commentary. So me and Trevor Smith did the commentary. That's our channel's claim to fame.
Oh, that's cool. Nice.
Yeah. I realized that people watching it wanted commentary. Commentary makes or breaks fights, or else it just literally feels like a gang brawl.
Especially to the uninitiated eye, they have trouble seeing what's going on and identifying it. So having someone sit there and explain, oh, this is what's going on here. It'd be like me watching football, because I don't really know football.
Yeah.
And if I were watching it and there were no commentary, I'd be like, oh, okay. They throw the ball. They kick the ball. There's a bunch of lines on the field with numbers. Okay, whatever.
So, and then after TFC, Street Beefs let me use their footage. So You know, it
Okay.
just started from there. Street Beef's super nice people. Chris Wilmore. And they're just like, yeah, well, we have lots of footage. You can analyze whatever. So, you know, it kind of
Nice.
just builds on itself. And now all these leagues, like I just got in touch with them, this German league called Defend Club or Defend Fight Club. They're recently doing all these like Wing Chun versus MMA fights like on the grass and stuff. So their stuff slightly more
Nice.
yeah, but like I can analyze their stuff, and I'm actually gonna send them a list of questions so that way I can like, if besides my analysis, also like give more information on the league, which is what I always try to do. I always try to add value.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
That's
so
cool.
it just built on itself.
So did you guys see when all these challenge matches in China started up with against the fake masters? Did you
Yes.
see a spike in your
Yeah.
viewership go up?
And that's how the channel really went viral, because before that, Xu Xiaodong started appearing in the West. I had
Yeah.
maybe 5 viral videos, but once Xu Xiaodong, I started covering Xu Xiaodong, it was consistently viral because I was one of the few who could actually translate everything from the Chinese websites.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That gave you a niche, didn't it?
Yeah. It gave me a niche. Unfortunately, now that kind of challenge match is going on less and less because China keeps cracking down on that. So I have to find new niches. But for a while, it was like that was my channel. Everyone's like, dude, you cover Xu Xiaodong. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's I was wondering about that, about the spike. That's cool. Kind of rocket shipped you guys. It's from the sounds of it.
Yeah,
Good
exactly.
timing.
Yeah.
So today I thought we'd talk a little bit about just martial arts, general martial arts, but you wanted to also discuss some ego in sparring. What were your thoughts on that? This is big, I got a big catalog of stuff on that because that's a big deal to me myself.
Definitely. And I just
be a good conversation.
From my experience, there's ways of sparring that don't require you to always risk injuring other people, right?
Yeah.
And I have a coach where we spar and we're just very technical. We're very light. It's not like we're just like, ugh, but we're like, we tap each other. But it's not like I hit you so hard, you're like, ouch, right? That's not the point of sparring. I mean, there is that kind of sparring maybe to prepare you if you're going to really go fight somewhere. But right now, that's not my point. I'm not trying to go fight somewhere.
No, I mean, I would argue that if you bring it to that level before you're going to go to the fight, your chances of getting injured before the fight go up exponentially.
Yeah.
And then you can't fight because you're hurt.
Yeah, exactly. So there is that argument too. And I guess where I'm getting to this is that I feel like so much of why combat sports always gets a bad rap is literally because people are always getting hurt before they ever compete or do whatever. There's so much things that we could work on about the training aspects.
Absolutely.
Can lighten the load, so to speak, when it comes to injuries. Because, I give credit. I've been doing boxing, I've been doing Muay Thai, etc. But my coaches are all very safe. And I actually I had a very, very minor rotator cuff tear, but it was nothing. I cured it by doing a lot of these pull exercise. But I have had fewer injuries doing striking all these months than I have done doing jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu is supposed to be the safe martial art, right? Jiu-jitsu was a safe, soft martial art. But doing boxing, doing Muay Thai, and with light sparring, I haven't gotten hurt yet. So, it made me re-examine a lot of these, biases that, or these myths that are being sold to us about which martial arts are safe, etc.
Yeah, I agree. I think that with jiu-jitsu, especially, one of the things that, or a couple of factors that play into it, is as soon as somebody gets on the ground, their stress level goes up.
Yeah.
Their anxiety, right? Especially with somebody laying on top of them.
Yeah.
So they start to go into panic mode, especially with newer white belts and whatnot.
Yeah.
And you're not acclimated to that crucible yet.
Yeah.
And you have no skills. So it's like the only skills you walk in the door with are strength and speed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wherever you lie on the spectrum of either of those categories is what you are as a fighter. That's all you know.
Yeah.
But so you got that stress level that goes up. And then I think the fact that people aren't actually striking each other in a jiu-jitsu class, so they think that the intensity can go up.
Yeah.
And it's all good, but it doesn't work like that because you still get hurt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes worse.
Yeah, exactly. And then since we're talking about jiu-jitsu, I find jujitsu, because it's literally like learning to swim again. I think jiu-jitsu classes really benefit from a low student to instructor ratio. What that means is
Yeah.
most jiu-jitsu classes should have more instructors than what there are in there. You know, let's say there's eight students. I feel like there should be 4 instructors. I know some people think
why do you feel this way?
because all these moves are so intricate, and every time you practice and learn the new move, there should be someone there watching you, making sure you're doing it correctly. I've been in many of these jiu-jitsu classes where, let's say, there's 1 instructor or 2 instructors per, let's say, 20 students. And the instructor can't, he doesn't have peripheral vision to see what every student's doing. And then a lot of times you'll practice a move and you might do it wrong.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's a good observation. I'm going to give you play devil's advocate here from, and not really devil's advocate, because I have a slightly different opinion just from teaching for the last 20, 21 years. I understand the frustration. I do. But one thing that I think plays into more instructors to student, a lower ratio, is there's less collaboration among the students in the class.
Okay.
And they don't feel like they get a voice. So you could have somebody that's been training 4 years and they're working with a white belt, and it helps empower them and show them what they know and what they've learned over that time. Because a lot of difficulty with training over a long period of time in martial arts, especially when you've got people above you and you always lose to them, is, we look up. We don't look down. We don't look back often. So we get this constant negative reinforcement, if you will. It's like, oh man, I just can't beat that person. I can't beat her. I can't beat him. But we don't look down and see, oh, look where we came from.
Yeah.
And by working with beginners, that intermediate student starts to get empowered and feel like, hey, I do know things. I do. And not just in a rolling perspective, but in a helping perspective.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just tapping people out, choking them out, or knocking them out, but hey, this is how you do this, or this is how I solved that problem because I had that problem too. And instructors, man, as much as we want to say that this doesn't happen and we don't want it to happen, you've been doing something for 20 years. I'm sorry, you do not remember what it was like to be a beginner.
I see.
It doesn't happen. So you're like working on this different level, and you think that you're dumbing it down. You think that you're helping, and sometimes you do, but having people that are closer in the spectrum to what it was, that remember what it was like, or that have recently dealt with that problem. Cause you might've had that problem, but you had it 15 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can't help them. So just an alternate perspective there on, I know what you're saying. It'd be great, but that's like private instruction all the time, or semi-private.
And I 100% agree with you, and I appreciate you sharing that perspective. And I think maybe a good middle ground for what we're saying is, let's say there's 20 students in the class, right? And let's say there's 2 instructors. Maybe what the instructors can do is have some of the medium belts or the higher belts kind of be there. So not instructor student ratio, but like middle level students also be there kind of watching. And on top of that, maybe there should be an emphasis. Every white belt or, every new student should partner with a slightly more experienced student. So you should never have 2 inexperienced students partnering together.
Yeah. I generally try to do that for another reason too, is when you have 2 new students together, it feels like sometimes the blind leading the blind, for one. And 2, you have more of a tendency to find people using too much strength and power because they don't have, they can't feel what they should be doing. They can't feel that relaxed manner that an upper belt might have, or even a seasoned intermediate will have. So, and then just one other thought on what you said is, and then I'd like to hear more about your perspective on this, is, we're going to make mistakes. And I used to try to teach perfectly. And when I say that, not not that I was trying to do something on my end that was perfect, meaning I was trying to teach perfection in every move that I taught students. And I ended up stressing them out and created anxiety and so much pressure that you can't fail.
Yeah.
And success is a series of, it comes from a series of failures, right?
Yes. Yes.
So what do you think about those little add-ons to what
Yeah,
you're
I 100% agree with you. And it's something I'm working on in myself because I'm one of those, because of my Kung Fu experience as a kid, I'm all about perfection and form. And
yes.
my coach, one of my coaches, Coach Paris, calls me out all the time. He's like, Jerry, stop thinking so much. Just do the move, you know?
Yeah.
And even Sergio from Practical Combat's like, yeah, dude, Jerry, you know, a lot of your audience, or it's probably not just my audience, but a lot of audience criticizes Sergio for not being perfect in his form. But Sergio can kick most people's butt with Kung Fu. So, like, what does that mean? And I agree with him. It's just like sometimes the emphasis on form, on perfection doesn't always help. And so Coach Paris was always like, Jerry, don't just like kick, just punch, you know, just do it and you'll learn. Don't think so much about, okay, what angle, how do you, you know, all that. Just learn it first. Learn the basics first, and then you kind of like, you know, add the flair / add the intricacies later.
Yeah, it's an acceptance too that we're not a complete, you know, life is a journey and we're improving as we go.
Yeah.
It's a process. We're not perfect and we're not done. We're not done in our 20s. We haven't even gotten started in our 20s.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that I will add to this is that what you said about make room for mistakes is so important too. And that I would add when it comes to sparring and doing drills too. So like partner stuff, make room for mistakes too. And that's why I'm always doing neck exercises, because sometimes if you're doing drills or sparring with a partner, you unfortunately have to prepare for them accidentally, let's say, clipping you when they shouldn't. You know, this is a combat sport after all. Yes, you want to be as safe as possible, but you have to prepare for unfortunate situations. So like, that's why I make sure if I ever have to do anything with a partner, my neck is really strong. And it's happened before where we're just doing drills. We're not even supposed to go hard. We're not even supposed to hit each other. You know, we're supposed to practice, you know, hitting gloves and stuff like that. But the guy just, you know, either he let his ego get in the way, or maybe he just missed, or he's just scared of me for some reason. I don't think I'm scared at all. And he hits me in the face. You know, it happens, right? And one of the things that made me kind of maybe one of the evolutions in my thought process when it comes to combat sports is, yes, getting hit is inevitable, even if you're not sparring, but it doesn't mean you have to take damage from it. So like once in a while, maybe someone's going to clip you in the face. That just means your neck has to be really strong. You have to know how to absorb the hit without getting any damage. And so this one incident where this guy I was just doing drills with, he was supposed to hit me, but he hit me in the face. And I didn't even feel it. I was like, wow, my neck got strong. He apologized immediately. He didn't want me to like hit him back. But I'm like, dude, my neck's strong. It's okay. But you weren't supposed to hit me, right? He's like, yeah, I wasn't supposed to hit you. Sorry. But so that's another thing that I 100% agree with you. And that's my kind of add-on to that. It's just like, if you're going to do combat sports, make sure there's certain things you take care of, how to balance your body, how to, you know, how the right parts of your body need to absorb hits and stuff like that. These are all things that a lot of times we're not taught when we first get into combat sports. Like I've talked to many jiu-jitsu black belts. These are people who could kill me in 2 seconds, but some of them can't even raise their hands like this because their bodies are that imbalanced. Some of them can't even do this because their necks are imbalanced. So
the classic example is that is the weightlifter that becomes so large that they can't even swing their arms for a punch. It's like, you look strong, but your body is fighting itself when you try to go through movement. It's not practical movement. And if, you know, everybody has their own choice. If you want to lift weights, by all means, go for it. If that's the physique you want, awesome, more power to you. But from a functional level of body movement and range of motion, unless you're balancing it with yoga while you're doing it, you're probably creating imbalances and deficiencies in your body.
Exactly. And I think the evolution of martial arts and combat sports this century is going to be one, they're going to add more anatomy and sports medicine to it. But two, people are really going to start students out with things like, okay, how do you rebalance yourself? How do you train your upper back? So not only are your chest big, how do you work your neck immediately? So by the time you're taking hits, your neck is so strong that unless someone's like Mike Tyson, they're not going to hurt you too much. I think that's going to be an evolution in training method, because there's so much imbalance I see in so many sports athletes. Everyone, like, I guess I'm not a dude who's trying to like start anything. So people tell me about their imbalances. Muay Thai fighters, Jiu-Jitsu guys always tell me, yeah, dude, I got forward neck posture, or this part of me hurts for years. And then so much of it's just imbalance. It's not like they have like anything. I had a Jiu-Jitsu black belt, world-class Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I'm not going to say who he is unless one day he comes on my channel and wants to talk about this. But he thought he had a herniated disc. And then I felt around his neck because I had neck problems for a while. And I'm like, oh, no, you don't have a herniated disc. You just have neck imbalance like I do. But yours is way more imbalanced than me because you've had this imbalance for 4 or 5 years, whereas I had it for, I had an injury which aggravated it, but I hadn't had that imbalance for that long. And I just gave him some of the neck exercises I've been doing. And then he got better. He doesn't feel numbness anymore. He thought he had a herniated disc. He was so scared. But like,
yeah, it's funny. Like, I did a podcast a few months ago with a woman. She's a doctor of chiropractic and someone that I go to for myself to fix problems in some of these imbalances. But it was about active recovery that we had this conversation because, again, to highlight your point, I don't know if starting a class that when a beginner comes in and they say, hey, I want to learn how to defend myself. Okay, here first, we're going to go over this way that you hold your shoulders. I'm not sure that's going to be a good sell and that people are going to buy it. I agree with you. It's super important, but people have to understand that the why they need that. So until they have a problem, sometimes they're not looking for the solution.
Yeah.
But this next generation is a lot about learning about sports science, learning about active recovery, how you can't train every day. I don't care if you're 18 or you're 65. You train every day, you're going to get injured. You're going to destroy your body. I know, I've done it. I've lived it. I got to do something every day. I got to do something every day. You got to do something, but you don't have to do intensity every day.
Yeah.
And it's the nutrition, the exercise, like supplementary exercises. Yeah. And a great video you could look up later is with Ronda Rousey and Mike Tyson. Were on this talk show. And they were talking to both of them, and they asked Mike Tyson, God, I'm trying to remember the heavyweight that was winning at the time. They said, do you think you could beat him? And he said, in my prime? He said, I don't know, to be honest with you. He said the knowledge that we have today, and this video was probably from 4 or 5 years ago, the knowledge we have today about sports science and nutrition and the way these guys are eating, the way they're training, he said it's totally different. He said their level of athleticism is higher than when he was at his prime and at his peak.
The level of medical understanding is just evolving so quickly. And then with sports medicine, like you said, with athletes, it's just, everything's evolving so quickly.
So did you, when you were strengthening your neck to try to help, did you use the, because I used to try these for a while, the neck strengthening exercises from wrestling?
So I talked to my physical therapist about this. And so there are people online, very famous channels, I'm not going to say which channels, that talk smack about those exercises. My physical therapist was more nuanced. He said, look, if your neck is strong enough and you do it slow and controlled enough, you can do those. And, examples we're talking about like neck bridges and stuff like that. You can do those. Just, don't do them really fast like how Mike Tyson did them.
Pin your forehead and then you rock up.
Yeah, exactly. So like those are totally fine. Just don't do them too fast because it's sensitive down there, right? But there were like big YouTube channels who are taking the other extremes, like, oh, you're just gonna ruin your cervical spine. No, it's like as much as we like to say the neck is weak, it's not as weak as we think also. It's strong, right? It's strong, but it's not strong as, let's say, other areas of our body. So I personally, I have not done those wrestling exercises yet, just because the neck exercise do seem to work okay for me now, but I am definitely not opposed to trying that. And in fact, one of the black belts in Jiu-Jitsu that we've been exchanging a lot of this like muscle imbalance information on, I was helping him balance his neck. He strengthened his neck so much that now he can do neck bridges. So next time he comes to visit me, I'm going to get him to teach me, because, we've all been in the same place, which both of us had neck imbalance, and both of us are fixing it. And he's at the point where he can do controlled neck bridges. So I want to learn from him.
What do you think caused your neck imbalance?
Being a nerd, because I didn't do martial arts in high school and college. And, I got good enough grades to go into an Ivy League school. So what do you think I was doing all of high school? I was on the writing, my neck always in flexion position. And then when the computer came into everyone's homes, right? And now I'm on the computer, and most computer screens, nobody had the awareness of yet to make it eye level. So just constant forward head pressure. And in college, I got my first laptop, man. And not only was I working on my laptop, I hated my college. I'm not even going to pretend. So you know what I was doing? I was gaming all the time in college. Yeah. Neck in a flexion position, always gaming. So that's where I developed the imbalance. And then I started working out senior year of college, because I was like, I got to get out of this like slump. So I was working out, it was helping me so much, but I wasn't working out in a balanced way. I did too much chest. I did too much bench press. So like,
especially if you have a neck imbalance, that's really bad.
Yeah. And I remember I saw a picture of me senior year of college. I had muscle, but why? I was like, why does my head look so forward? And I didn't realize that was a warning sign. Jerry, you're really imbalanced. But it unfortunately took injuries for me to understand. When I went to the physical therapist after my second injury of my neck, this was last year in December, I believe. But he's like, Jerry, you have like zero upper back muscle. He was like a Korean guy who your classic Korean. He's a little bit like caustic sometimes when he talks to you. And he literally in his Korean accent, he's like, Jerry, don't be a nerd. That's more a Russian accent, but he literally said that, I guess, because he thought, we're Asians, we could take that kind of like funny insult. But he literally just told him, develop your upper back muscles. He gave me some exercises, which didn't really help, but he tried. And then he's like, don't be a nerd. I'm like, that's not really helpful to help me.
It seemed more of expertise of a physical therapist there instead of the general practitioner.
Yeah. So just being a nerd. Being honest, I was a huge nerd for many years in my life.
I've had many students come through, especially younger. They get, I call it cell phone head. They're just like,
flexion
all the time, and they can't get their head up. Yeah. There's 60 pounds of force pressure on your cervical spine when you're doing this.
Yeah.
And the discs fuse together. So they're doing surgeries on teenagers now that they used to only do on elderly.
Yeah, elderly, exactly.
Yeah.
So
we're getting off topic from martial arts.
We were talking about body imbalances, neck exercises, etc. So this is very important for martial arts.
It is, yes. Yeah. So when we were a few minutes ago, we were talking about ego and sparring, and we really were talking about ego and drilling from the sounds of it.
Yeah.
And but when we're sparring, do you want to elaborate on what you were thinking?
I think for me, like whenever I've sparred, I don't think I'm the type of person to spar with an ego. I probably, if I were younger, I would be, but I'm never the type of person to go extra hard or like, give someone a hit or something, or like muscle. Even in jiu-jitsu, I don't muscle. And I guess I have to remind myself that other people are not like that. So not to say everyone's like that, but there are people who, might have an ego when they spar. So I guess it's like twofold. One is if you want to be an effective student, drop the ego, but two, always prepare for other people who have an ego, right? You can't just like, I'm going to be nice. Other people are going to be nice too.
Yeah, you can't assume that for sure.
Yeah.
It's, but you can't, this is the thing that it takes two, right?
Yeah.
So in the past, I've had people come to me and complain that somebody was going too hard, too fast, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So before I jump on that person, I always ask, Did you ask them to slow down?
Yeah. Yeah.
You ask them to stop.
Yeah.
And maybe some people take that as victim blaming, but we're not playing Legos here. We're
Exactly.
trying to learn self-defense. And part of
Yeah.
learning self-defense is developing a positive self-image
Yeah.
and a self-image that, hey, you know what? I can stand up and ask for this because I deserve it.
Yeah.
I could send my food back in a restaurant. I could tell somebody that their product they gave me is crap. Whatever it is, instead of just taking it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that our first reaction either, to your point, like you're just not like this, but some people are that. And I had issues with this as well from my past is if somebody hit me too hard, I would just instantly get mad and want to retaliate. It's like, or maybe your solution in saying something is too aggressive or too angry instead of just politely saying, hey, do you think you could slow it down? Now, if you're asking them to slow down, you're asking them to not hit as hard and they continue to do it, then that's up to the instructor to now deal with that person because they're just not, they don't belong there.
Yeah.
I mean, a few years ago, I learned this great thing I stole from Muay Thai was in Thailand, if somebody comes in and they're going too hard, too fast, they won't fight with them. They won't spar. They look at them and they say they're too amateur.
Wow.
And I think that's great. You're too amateur. You can't spar yet. You can't control yourself.
Yeah.
You can't control yourself. What business do you have sparring? Because you're going to hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And the stuff we know now, you were talking about advances in medicine. Holy crap. The stuff that we know now about concussions and CTE from 10 years ago, it's like one hit in the head can give you permanent lasting brain damage depending on the person that gets hit.
Yeah.
You really want to screw around in the name of martial arts, blasting each other in the head.
I really hope we do even more research into all that. I remember 2018, I learned from a PhD guy who told me that even people who play soccer, you know, you don't think of soccer as a CTE sport, but it is. Not only
heading the ball.
Running, heading the ball, exactly. Especially now that I've done so much kind of balancing on my neck, and of course my neck is still, it's much better looking at the mirror now. I have a mirror right there, but like it still slightly has imbalances, right? I still have a little bit of forward neck pressure, but again, it's like I've developed this for like 10 years. So of course it's going to take a while for it to correct itself completely. But, you know, as I started looking at neck exercises and rebalancing my neck, I started looking at left way, right? Because in left way, they're headbutting each other. So I always thought about, okay, how do you headbutt without like hurting yourself, right? And a lot of it has to do with really thick neck and lining up the structure of your head in a way. So, you know, the force isn't going into your brain, you know, it's getting absorbed in other areas. So you're not shaking your brain while you headbutt people, right? You know, if you headbutt people like this, you're going to shake your own brain, right? You know, so if you look at how they headbutt, a lot of times it's either like a very gentle, almost like a push, or it's like you align your structure and you go in. So it's like the whole body supporting your head. But the reason I'm mentioning this is if you look at how soccer players head the ball, a lot of times they're not doing that. They're not lining the structure up correctly. So now I suddenly understand that's why there's a lot of CT in soccer players, because nobody taught them how to hit the ball correctly with their heads. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, and to go back to how dangerous it is in the training process with what we do with combat sports. A few years ago, I had an interaction with a gentleman that he wouldn't do martial arts. He was doing CrossFit. And he wouldn't do it anymore because he was training MMA at this just balls to the wall, blast each other in the head gym, local gym. I won't name names, but every time they go to class, they were full contact, full sparring. And he quit after not one, not two, the third time that he lost days. Meaning he had days go by that he could not remember anything. And the last time it happened, it was a 3-day stint. He had 3 full days that he couldn't remember anything.
Wow.
And then he gave it up and he wouldn't go back.
Wow.
That's what concussions will do. And CTE, I mean, we don't have I don't think they've started doing the autopsies on fighters yet.
Exactly. I have a friend who almost went through the same exact situation. He trained at an MMA gym for a while where they would just spar her hard all the time. And he's older now. His wife just is pregnant now. So, he's about to have his first kid in a few months. But he's like, wow, yeah, if knowing what I knew now, I wouldn't have done all that hard sparring in the MMA gym.
I know, I did it too. I mean, we used to just blast each other, and then, and I'm guilty of it early on with my school and my students. I did the same thing. I made those mistakes because we didn't know any better. That's the way you're taught. You just, you teach other people. And then in 2010 was really when you started seeing the football evidence come out of brain damage and more research being done. So I started changing. I took everybody's helmets away in my school, and the speed went down and the intensity went down.
Nice.
But it's systemic. We have to, as coaches, as trainers, we have to be super aware of the dangers of that. It's a fine line between stuff like 6-inch rules and point sparring, right?
Yeah.
You know that. It's like, okay, well, that's useless. That's training somebody to fail.
Yeah, to fail.
Between that and creating a scenario that's got pressure and resistance without people getting injured, it's a super hard balance.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I think you hit at something very important, which is most coaches are just teaching how they were taught, right? And I think as a coach, this is the same analogy to why Chinese martial arts often gets the bad end of the stick, is that you can't just always stick to tradition. As a coach, as a professor or whatever, it's your responsibility to really look at the latest in research, in science, in training methods, and improve it, right? Because if you're just teaching how you were taught, it doesn't mean that it's the best. And people criticize a lot of the Eastern martial arts because they're always getting beat up by MMA fighters, but you can apply that same methodology to a lot of other combat sports. It's like their fighting effectiveness is better, but it doesn't mean their longevity is good. So it's like
I had a great conversation years ago with the gentleman that Aaron Blake. He was the first black belt in the state of Maine for BJJ. And he was a physical therapist. And we were talking at Origin training camp where they get a bunch of black belts together. And at the time it was 10. I don't know how many they do now, but I haven't been in a couple of years. And you just have a 4-day intense training sessions and seminars from these black belts. It's awesome. And Aaron was there, and he was doing some PT on the side with people. And we were talking about Tai Chi. And I said, I was still teaching that a few days a week at the time. And I said, Aaron, what do you think about Tai Chi as far as for athletes, for recovery? And he said, I think it's awesome. He said, I wish I had done it years ago. And this is a guy that he's like black belt in BJJ. He's a PT. So he's definitely has the credentials and the background to be looking at this. But he said that style of movement and just putting your body through those motions on off days in between intense rolling sessions would be extremely beneficial to people. But we get, like you're saying, people just rip on Chinese martial arts and put it all in this category, and to its own fault. I fully agree. Like, people have been getting away with stuff for a long time and pretending they could fight when they couldn't. But that stuff doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bathwater, right?
Exactly. And I just think every coach has a responsibility to get informed about a lot of stuff. I mean, people are putting not just their safety, but like not just like their martial arts safety, but also their health, like in your hands when they train with you, right? So I think it's like every coach needs to realize, okay, as a coach, I should do research on the body. I should do research on the brain and stuff like that. It should be that's requiring a lot about the coach, but you're being paid money to like train people. So you should know a little bit about what happens when you get hit in the head and stuff like that.
Especially that. And nowadays there's no excuse. That's almost negligence if you refuse to look at the evidence that's out there on head injuries. And there's ways to do it. And it sounds like you're experiencing that, and you've got some good coaches yourself, and that's hard to find. And you gotta stay away from bad gyms where that's the way they train.
Yeah.
Russian wrestlers don't train like that, full intensity all the time. They're doing soft, like flow drills. And you a few years ago saw some major UFC fighters coming out and saying they don't spar in the gym. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Because they can't afford to get hit in the head all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But we have a saying in our school. We've done a lot of work on that stuff with slow to learn, fast to test.
Yes.
And if you're trying to test every time you are learning, then you're stressed out and you're not in ideal learning receiving mode, right?
Yeah, agreed.
You're now panicking.
Yeah.
So you're not going to remember what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Wow. Dude,
I love doing stand-up now.
Yeah, I'm doing a little bit of boxing and Muay Thai.
Nice.
And my Muay Thai coach he started out in traditional, like you call TMA. So he takes some of the TMA aspects and puts it in. So we do some body conditioning that's probably a little bit more from karate and Kyokushin especially, and
iron body stuff.
Yeah, stuff like that. So we're conditioning the thighs and the ribs and stuff like that.
And do that in Western boxing too.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Medicine balls.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they were for. Dropping them on the abs, getting conditioned. Boom, boom, boom.
Interesting.
Getting the diaphragmatic response down, so when you get hit, it's that instead of just getting the wind knocked out of you.
Exactly. I did not know that. So medicine balls have evolved in purpose too, because most people don't use them for that now.
Yeah, exactly. They're not used for their intended purpose anymore.
Yeah. Wow. That's so interesting. Yeah, and my Muay Thai coach, we very light spar. So, he's like, we can always dial up in the future, but as of now, that's not the point, right? That's not the point of sparring. Right. It's not to hurt each other, just to work on, see where the timing is, see where's the holes in the technique and stuff like that. And like, just from training with him, I can tell just being tapped very lightly. Oh yeah, my hands weren't there. I don't need to get hit very hard to understand my hands weren't there.
You don't need to go home forgetting the entire class.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where am I? How do I get to my car? How do I find my home?
Yeah.
I borderline believe like the test. We have that saying, slow to learn, fast to test. And there's obviously the higher in experience or the higher in belt you go, the more you can go faster with control. Yeah. But testing is competing.
Yeah.
Like go enter a cage match, go to a BJJ tournament, go to a wrestling match, go to a Golden Gloves. If you want to ramp it up to that level, but don't hurt the people that got to go to work the next day.
Exactly.
And provide for their families.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And then the other thing, since we're also on this topic, the difference between kind of training in combat sports and then self-defense, right? Yeah. I think that sometimes is not emphasized in a lot of schools, even because, if you're just, let's say, boxing or doing Muay Thai all the time, sometimes the coach isn't also spending a little time talking to the student about, okay, what if someone starts stuff with you on the street? What do you do? Like, I think I was talking to someone, not yesterday, or was it yesterday? It was on Saturday about kind of like, the importance of things like vocal de-escalation and stuff like this. And
yeah, that's something that's often glossed over or not thought of, right? Because we're so focused on the physical response to a violent situation instead of the verbal.
Yeah. And in fact, I had an incident like this. And in fact, my Muay Thai coach was there with me when this happened. So this is actually a really cool example to talk about. And I don't know the right answer to this. So that's why I wanted to present it to you and all the viewers so they can weigh in on this. So I had a picnic with a bunch of people, mostly my church group, but my Muay Thai coach came anyways because I love my Muay Thai coach. And we were all sitting, it was a bunch of us, and Muay Thai coach with his girlfriend, some of the church group where they were all just sitting. And this really sketchy looking homeless guy, probably on drugs, comes over to us. And he's not like just like far away. He's literally walking this close. Where my hand is literally this close, walking behind all of us.
Oh yeah.
And he's looking at everyone, and he's looking at the food. And so I'm the only one, because I've been in situations like this. I kind of look at him. I'm not threateningly looking at it. I look at him like, I'm trying to figure out what you're doing. Right. And then he's kind of walking around. He doesn't do anything. He walks away. And then one of the church members was like, dude, was it just me, or was that really sketchy? And we're like, yeah. And my Muay Thai coach, because he's like 6'4", and he has a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu on top of being a black belt in like 5 other striking arts. So he's like, yeah, I'm not worried. If he's not saying anything, I'm not going to do anything. And so, but like, I was the only one who, like, I was paying attention. I wasn't even like, most of them had him in the periphery. I'm like, I'm facing you, right?
Yeah.
So later on, he came back, and at that point, my Muay Thai coach left. So now it's like I'm the only one there with martial arts experience now. So I'm like, now I don't have a wingman if anything happens.
Right.
So this time the homeless guy's doing that thing again. He's really close to everyone. Like, he could literally punch people in the head. So now I'm not letting him get to the back of me. He comes to the back of me. I face him. I'm prepared to, like, do a technical stand-up. And that makes him react. He's like, you okay, man? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. He's like, I'm not going to steal you. You know that? And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But like, so I'm telling this story because there's 2 things, right? One is, do you ignore a situation like this and hope it goes away? And if you decide not to ignore it, how do you react in a way that doesn't escalate it, right? And I think about, okay, all I did was, I don't want you behind me. I'm not trying to fight him. I'm not even going like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? I'm literally like, okay, I see you. You're not gonna come behind me. And I got him to react, but in a way it worked, because he never came back again. Once he saw that, I'm prepared for whatever the F he's trying to do. So like, I'm not saying I did the right thing, but this is just what I did.
No, it is right from the perspective, victim choosing, if you will, when it comes to bullying in schools too, or selecting targets for muggings.
Yeah.
People want an easy target.
Yeah.
But it's not a conscious decision necessarily. They're just subconsciously picking out off of vibes and body language. We're animals, right? Yeah. So one of the things that we teach in self-defense when we teach it is body posture.
Yeah.
Posture's huge. Because if your body language is like, and you're walking down the street with your head down, or you're looking around like you're afraid, you're putting yourself as a target. You're promoting yourself as a target instead of your head up, your chest out, walking around with confidence, even if you don't feel like it. So you absolutely did the right thing, is just making sure that the person becomes aware that you're not that compliant.
Yeah.
You're not going to just be rolled over.
Yeah.
And that was enough to deter from the sounds of it.
And it's interesting because the homeless guy never talked to anyone. Right? The first time he came around was just like almost like a predator stalking a prey almost. Yeah. But the second time, the moment I reacted a little bit, he talked to me to kind of like try to see if I would be afraid of him. So it's like, yes, I got him to verbalize certain things, but it was almost like I verbally de-escalated it, because I was like, no, I'm not a threat to you. As long as you're not a threat to me, that's basically what I communicated to him.
Right.
And he went away. So it's like something I wondered, because my Muay Thai coach didn't do anything. He literally just sat there and he was just like, okay, I don't care. But he let the homeless guy get behind him. So in a self-defense situation, I think I did a better job than my Muay Thai coach, even though my Muay Thai coach could kick me in the face and kill me. I'm serious. That's how much his kicks are. He's that powerful. But he let the homeless guy get behind him, and he wasn't worried because he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. If the guy does anything, he could probably like spin around real quickly and do something to the guy. But I wasn't taking that chance.
Well, let me throw this in the mix. What if it was a knife?
Yeah, exactly. And that was the first thing I thought about when he came over. I'm like, what if this guy has a knife? Yes, there were like 10 of us there sitting there with picnicking. We could probably like restrain him. But, what if he has a knife? Am I going to be the one to be stabbed first before we restrain him?
Look at the stories from a few years ago. Like we have mass shootings here in the U.S. And people say that it's not the get into a political firestorm here. I'm sure I'm going to get flack for saying this, but that it's not, you don't need a firearm to do mass killings.
Yeah.
And we had shortly thereafter, there was a subway in China where somebody went in with a machete and got like 79 people.
Yes, yeah. It happened a few times in China where people with machetes just started wielding on people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
you get a blade and it's not like everybody's going to have time to say, okay, let's all rush them at once.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's reaction is to start to panic and fight or flight.
Scatter. Yeah. Or to fight or flight or hide or panic or freeze, right? Fight or flight or freeze or hide or seek help, right? Those are the 5. Yeah. It's never fight or flight, man. There's 5 responses. It's not just 2.
Yeah. So having someone behind you and then expecting that the crowd is going to take them. Have you ever taken a CPR class?
I have, but this was in high school. So it's been too many years.
One of the first things they tell you is if you have to perform CPR and there are other people around, you look at someone directly and you say, you call 911.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't just say someone calls 911 because they've shown that in groups, humans just don't react.
Yeah. Like diffusion of responsibility. Yeah. Psychology, diffusion of responsibility.
Diffusion of responsibility. Thank you. That's a good term. Just somebody else will take care of it. It's not on me. So you have to assign somebody the task to get it done.
Yeah. And I've heard that solution too. Apparently that is the best solution when there's a crowd and there's a diffusion of responsibility. You delegate. Yeah. You call the police. You help me control his legs. You give me a napkin or something. Yeah. In a CPR example. So
there was a really horrific example of this. I think it was about 5 years ago now in California. A girl at her prom was gang raped outside of the prom in the parking lot, and people were recording it on their cell phones.
Wow!
No one called 911.
Wow!
It is despicable. Pathetic example of human beings being apathetic or shirking responsibility. What did you call it? Diffusion of responsibility.
Diffusion of responsibility.
That you would allow something like that to happen in front of you. And I mean, that to me is like one of our weak points. Race, if that's the way we behave. So you have to assign tasks to people.
And Randy, I'll give you another psychology concept which goes hand in hand with this, which is called pluralistic ignorance. And it applies a lot to these situations where there's ambiguity, because the concept of pluralistic ignorance is, one, there's ambiguous information and there's ambiguity from the action. So here's what I mean by that. In that case you were talking about, where let's say, there's some horrible, despicable thing going on, but everyone's recording. So if I'm a third party watching this, there's this ambiguous situation, which is there's this thing going on, but people are recording, right? There's this ambiguity. Why aren't people reacting more? So what I'm interpreting from people's actions is that it's not a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what it's more complicated than that, but that's what pluralistic ignorance is. It's you interpret from everyone's actions something in information that's not true. So applying it to the case of the homeless guy and me and my friends, right? Because everyone wasn't reacting, even though everyone in their heart was concerned, by interpreting how everyone was just kind of seemed chill, everyone was interpreting that the group didn't think it was a big deal.
Yeah.
But the same exact solution of what you said about how to deal with diffusion of responsibility is exactly how you get rid of pluralistic ignorance, which is communication.
Right.
That one girl who's like, dude, is it just me or was that really sketchy? She tried to communicate and that raised the alarm of everyone, right?
Yes.
So like it's the exact same thing, but sometimes diffusion of responsibility and pluralistic ignorance, they go hand in hand. Sometimes they're both happening. Sometimes one's causing the other, if that makes sense. So it's like sometimes to understand diffusion of responsibility, you have to understand the concept of pluralistic ignorance.
Well, it's funny. I'm sure that somebody could, or maybe already has, look into the sociology of the change and evolution with modern day society where we're not as tribal.
Yeah.
And so if you went back thousands of years and you look at that, if that were the tribe and there were a stranger that came up around you, you would
Yeah.
all be in alarm. You would
Yeah.
all be,
Yeah.
what's going on here?
Yeah.
But because we have these new social norms or expectations or the way we
Yeah.
behave, somehow that nobody reacts to that weird behavior.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everyone just kind of, yeah, until it's too late.
Yeah. Till it's too late. Yeah. And so I had to tell the story that I experienced because, again,
Yeah.
I feel like I probably should have reacted even quicker. I should have communicated with the group even quicker, but I didn't because my Muay Thai coach was there. I felt like if there's some person who's really prepared, he is.
You diffuse the responsibility to
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like knowing what I know now, it's like I should have immediately been like, hey, man, you see what's going on? Are you concerned? I should have communicated with him earlier.
Or you could have looked at the guy and said, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, yeah.
And now it's I see you.
Yeah, I see you.
I know you're here.
Yeah. And it's not threatening. It's just literally verbal de-escalation.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And it establishes a rapport versus, hey, what do you want?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you doing over here? You know, and that's a little bit more extreme depending on the circumstance. But yeah. Is your background in psychology?
I took a lot of psych classes in college, but I'm not a psych person per se.
What was your degree in, if you don't mind me asking?
Philosophy, politics, economics. So I'm a generalist when it comes to social sciences. So I do know more about psychology than most people, but that's not my focus. I just know a lot about social sciences. That's why I have all these like terms in my head and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's good. You taught me a couple things today. That's I always like that. I like learning new things, so appreciate it.
And the reason I bring this up, going back to the self-defense talk, is that I think these are things that I think a lot of martial artists need to think about more. One of my jiu-jitsu black belt friends, he was attacked in his car once. He had a seatbelt on. Because he never trained with seatbelts on, he got stuck in a seatbelt and he ate 3 punches to the face.
Yep.
So he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and he even told me, he's like, okay, someone stopped it. And then once he recovered from being dazed a little bit, he took off his seatbelt, and then he got out of his car. He's like, yeah, you want to go again?
Yeah.
but it's like,
you want to go again, it could have been the end if it had gone wrong or he got hit in the wrong target.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like
he got a do-over, which he was lucky.
Yeah, he was lucky, exactly. But I sent him because one of my viewers, shout out to Sundown TE, who he trains a lot of car defense, he trains a lot of shiv work, so a lot of like knife stuff. You know, not like I do a block on the knife, but literally like they have full like protective gear. They're like really going at it, right? So I told him about this. He immediately made a video, which I'm going to feature soon, on, okay, what do you do if someone attacks you on your car and you have your seatbelt on? You know, a lot of the pummeling you can actually do with the seatbelt, right? Because you can pummel the seatbelt to the back of you, so now it's not restraining you. But if you haven't trained that, right, the first thing you want to do is to react like this, and now the seatbelt, you know, because it reacts to tension, you're stuck, right? You don't think about pummeling the seatbelt to the back, at least the part that goes across you.
Yeah.
So it's like, but this is stuff that it's self-defense. It'll save your life, but most people don't train. Most people don't train, whether they're a black belt and whatever, in jiu-jitsu and kyokushin and taekwondo, whatever. They don't train this stuff.
Well, here as kind of this is a good way to finalize, wrap this up is, again, this is something anecdotal from my own experience. I've taught self-defense courses for years, separate from my jiu-jitsu classes, my boxing classes, because it's, as you know, self-defense and martial arts are not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah.
Martial arts is somebody training over a period of time to be better at self-defense. Yeah, it should be incorporated in your martial arts.
Yeah.
But you're going to a higher level because you enjoy it and you want to be able to handle situations no matter how big somebody is or how strong, and different scenarios you might find yourself in, where self-defense should be streamlined and not require years of training. You should be able to teach somebody self-defense in a weekend, in my opinion. Yeah. And we taught courses like this for years.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the problem. When you own a school, a martial arts school, the perception, and I made this mistake, I've seen it, is I like you, from the sounds of it, I do multifaceted training, more
Mm-hmm.
eclectic. Like, yes, I do jujitsu. Yes, I do boxing, but I also do active recovery. I also do hardcore, high intensity boxing, kickboxing workouts for strength and conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to offer that. Spent years trying to offer that full spectrum to the public. Like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we have Tai Chi for those of you that want to do that. We have this, we have that. But the perception from the outside, from a person, a consumer, is that I don't know what you do.
Mm.
I mean, I don't go, when I started jujitsu, my jujitsu teacher does jujitsu. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
go to my jujitsu teacher because he teaches yoga too,
Yeah.
which he
Yeah.
doesn't. But I wouldn't travel. I used to drive 2 hours to class and 2 hours back. And I didn't do that because he was doing Muay Thai and BJJ.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to do BJJ with him. So
Yeah.
I actually stopped my self-defense program because to the general public, it's like, well, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you do boxing? Do you do jiu-jitsu? It's hard enough to convince people that you do two martial arts, right?
Yeah.
Never mind. Yeah, we also do streamlined, very effective self-defense training. And that disconnect there makes it problematic as a person who's trying to provide those services to the general public. It's like, where do you distinguish? Okay, you've got these people over here that's what they do all the time, self-defense. I forget the names of some of the programs out there, but that's all they do, right? Versus, oh, there's that martial arts karate guy over there, and he does a free weekend self-defense course. And there's a big difference there.
Yeah.
Not only in possibly what is being offered, because I've seen self-defense programs that's all they do and they're garbage.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen people that do other martial arts that do just a short seminar and it's the most effective stuff you've seen in your life.
Yeah.
So I've seen it flipped up, but the perception from the consumer is not there.
Yeah.
Which one are you going to choose?
Yeah.
Are you going to choose the karate guy offering a free self-defense class for 2 hours? Or are you going to try to go to that 6-week course that's being done by the experts?
Yeah. Yeah. These are complicated issues, man. And thinking about it from another perspective too, a lot, just like you said, a lot of those people that are teaching those self-defense, not a lot, but there are people who teach self-defense courses that the self-defense is garbage, right? So the perception in the consumer's mind is, I want to go to the specialist because at least the specialist knows what that specialty, he knows exactly what he's doing. But if the specialist is being general, and we see a lot of examples of this, strikers trying to teach grappling, grapplers trying to teach striking. Oh my goodness, right? So it's like the moment the specialist tries to be general, then a lot of things just fall off the cliff immediately.
Yeah, and it's true. It's true.
So I get it from the. So no, go ahead.
I was going to tell you this quick story of, we had a private high school that we used to teach our self-defense course at every year. And when I first started the program with them, they were using, again, I won't mention names, they were using this very popular nationwide self-defense program that was offered. They became kind of franchises, if you will, not technically franchises, but maybe there was a licensing fee for using their name. And they had instructor training courses and all this, very high level, but they were paying them thousands and thousands of dollars to come in once a year and offer this course. But the course was 2 nights a week for 16 weeks. And I looked at it and I knew somebody who worked there, and they got me a meeting with the dean of students. And I went in to meet with the dean of students, and I explained to him what we do. I said, listen, we're going to come in, we're going to do 8 hours. And in that 8 hours, we're going to cover the most common types of attacks you're willing to face and hold standing up. We're going to do a section on the ground. And then we're going to do verbal situation, like how to de-escalate situations and then escalate if the verbal is not working. And then we're going to do a section on scenarios where we put suits on. We're going to put the girls in a car and they're going to get carjacked. We're going to go in and do close quarter stuff in rooms. So this is what we're going to do. He's like, what do you mean it's 8 hours? I said, that's all I need. We're going to do it. If we could do it over one day or we can do it over 2 days. He's like, what? We're doing 16 weeks. I said, I don't need 16 weeks. And if somebody needs 16 weeks, then their stuff isn't going to work. Because under stress, you have to be able to remember this stuff under stress. And something that, oh, hey, I took a self-defense course 4 years ago. Okay. Then that one course you took, something, at least 1 to 2 things should have stuck in your head for 4 years that you can get you out of a bad situation. Not something, hey, I got to go take that course every year. I got to take that course for 6 months or even 16 weeks. It's like, what do you mean 16 weeks? What do you have to spend 16 weeks? 3 hours a night, twice a week. So 6 hours a week for 16 weeks they were training. And I could not convince this guy. This is the point of my story. I'm getting off track. I could not convince him that I only needed 8 hours. So the first year that we did it, we actually had to blow the course out. The shortest I could get him to agree to was a month, twice a week for a month. And then over the next few years, I was able to finally weed him down to a single 1 day, 8 hour session. Yeah. But it took me a few years to crack that shell because they had been pre-programmed that you need this extensive library of skills that are super technical.
Yeah. You know, Randy, I love what you said earlier about self-defense. Okay. Self-defense courses, you should 5-10 years down the line still be able to use or remember 1 or 2 things from that. That's an effective course right there. I love what you said there.
Yeah.
So true. So true. If you take like a month of it and like you can't even use any of that 2 years down the line because you need to practice it, probably that self-defense course was not the most effective for self-defense, not for combat sports, not for martial arts, but self-defense.
I'll bear my my sins here for the general public, the benefit of the general public. I was early in my training with Mantis. I was also parallel training in Chin Na.
Mm-hmm.
All the joint locking in the Chinese martial arts. And I had been doing that. I changed schools. I moved to another state. So I changed schools. I was training at and became an instructor at this new school, but it was all forms-based training. And then at the end of the class, we would spar. But the sparring was like full, like beat the snot out of each other with boxing gloves. No coaching, no technique, no connection between what you were training before with what you were sparring. And this college, it was in a city, and this college approached the instructor, that main instructor, about offering a self-defense course for the college girls. And he agreed to it, but he didn't know how to do it. And he had never done one. So he pulls me aside with this other instructor. Last minute, the night it was happening, like no notice, Randy, I want you to go over and teach them self-defense. I said, what? Now that I would only been, this was when I had been training for 4 years, I think. So 3 years, almost 4. And I said, I don't know how to teach them self-defense. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
He said, you know, all that Chin Na stuff. Just go teach them that. And I shamefully admit that I did teach them that because that's what I was asked to do.
Yeah.
I should have said no.
Yeah.
But that's how I know what bad self-defense is, because I did it. And all those joint locks take years.
Yeah.
And years to perfect, to the point that you can even hope to use them.
Yeah.
And they don't usually teach you with proper feeder drills. So you can't even get them to work, even if you know how to lock somebody's joint. It's like, yeah. Okay. Good luck pulling that off with a full speed, full contact, a self-defense situation. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm guilty of doing the same thing, Jerry. That's how I know.
I'm guilty too. One time when I was back home in China, I tried to teach some like beginner jiu-jitsu drills to my nephews and nieces, and then I realized, they're not remembering any of that. You know, it's like so I've been there, but now it's like I have a neighbor with a little kid, and the little kid often likes to like play fight with me. So now I take that lesson of like teaching bad self-defense, and I think about what can the kid remember immediately. And one thing I taught the kid was, don't let me get to your back. And now the kid never lets me get to his back. So I think that was more effective self-defense than what I did with my nephews, which is, if someone moves your legs this way, this is how you maintain open guard. I taught that stuff to my nephews.
You break your fingers.
But like the kid, like this kid, he's only like 4 or 5, man. But now he never lets me get to his back. I think I effectively taught him a good self-defense lesson right there. He never lets me.
Absolutely. Yeah. That sticks with him.
Yeah, and he's not using jiu-jitsu per se or some advanced technique. He just learns I'm never getting to his back. So he's running around, always turning in a way that I can't get to his back. I think I taught him something effective, you know? Or like I taught him very quickly, you know, like use your hand somehow to protect your face. So now oftentimes I see him protecting his face. He's not doing it completely, going back to the beginning of the conversation here, he's not doing it completely like a boxer or like a karate guy, but he's protecting his face. So I think I gave him 2 good lessons. Never let someone get to your back, and then protect your face.
Right.
Much better than here's how you punch exactly the right way, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Here's how you lock somebody's shoulder in 15 different ways that you'll never remember.
Yeah. Exactly. So, dude, I love that like the two of us have such different experiences, but we came to many of the same conclusions with a lot of stuff. That's why I love this. Was such an enjoyable conversation. That's why I would love to talk to you some more in the future too.
I agree. We'll have to do it again in the future, Jerry.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you stopping by today. It's probably a good place to wrap up, and we'll have to save our other thoughts for future conversations because they're always good. I enjoyed it.
Dude,
thank you very much.
It was such an honor. Thank you, Randy.
All right. Awesome.